Greetings and salutations. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of 10 Things I Like here on the SevereMMA YouTube page. As I adjust my mic, I am Spencer Kyte. We are talking today about UFC Las Vegas. As I said yesterday, not 100% sure what to really call this one. It's not at the Apex. It is at the Theater at Virgin Hotels, which is a new stop for the UFC in this existence of it. Previous iteration was the Hard Rock Hotel. It was the joint. They did 8 shows there way back in the day, but first time in a long time, staying at home, staying local, but moving out of the Apex. So hopefully all the folks that hate the Apex, that hate those shows, are going to be a little more happy about this one. I think this is a great card. I think there's a lot here to be excited about, and we're going to dive right in. Item number 1, Petr Yan is fighting. This is a guy that is getting this treatment. Every single time he fights, I am interested. I'm excited. I look forward to it. He's a guy that no matter the situation, no matter the circumstance, he is capable. He is dynamic. He is interesting to watch. There's technical elements that are brilliant. There's a little bit of meanness to him at times. There's a little bit of confidence and cockiness and, oh, you think you can do this to me, to him, that is just all put together the exact kind of thing I look forward to watching on a Saturday afternoon or evening, sitting in my den, kicking back and just, the week after a pay-per-view, I've said it many times, I've often thought the UFC should take a week off following a pay-per-view event just to give everybody time to digest. And these shows that come after are usually, as I used to call them, the hangover shows. I still call them the hangover shows. We just haven't had one in a little bit. But this isn't a hangover show to me. This is this is kind of like a hair of the dog show where we're just jumping right back in and we're getting a bunch of good fights, capped by the former bantamweight champion taking on Merab Dvalishvili, who we'll get to in a moment. This is outstanding. Petr Yan it's so weird to think about, right? But he's lost 2 straight. He's lost 3 of his last 4. But you could still make an argument to me that he's the best bantamweight in the world, because those 2 fights with Aljamain Sterling were ultra close. The fight with Sean O'Malley, ultra close. And if he went out and by the end of this year was back atop the division, I don't think anybody would be surprised. Now he's got a big test in front of him on Saturday. He needs to get through that. That is obviously objective number 1 and goal number 1. But it's a competitive fight. It should be a competitive fight. Should be an entertaining fight. But Petr Yan is fighting, and I'm pumped up about it. Item number 2, Merab gets a major step up. With all due respect to the legend, the Hall of Famer, the great Jose Aldo, this is the kind of fight I've been waiting to see for Merab Dvalishvili. As good as he has been during this 8-fight winning streak, it wasn't until he got into even the Marlon Moraes fight was sort of one of those ones where I think we all agreed that Moraes was clearly on the downturn. He was clearly like trending in the wrong direction. And we saw that play out in that fight, right? He had Merab hurt, couldn't get him out of there, and then ends up he's got nothing left, and it becomes one-way traffic. He gets railroaded. The Jose Aldo fight, it was always a weird matchup. Ideally, in our hearts, we wanted to see Jose Aldo come out and be the Jose Aldo of old, but that just wasn't possible. Merab did a very good job of suffocating him, of neutralizing the offense, of just sort of keeping him against the fence and doing the bare minimum of what he needed to do to get that victory. What I love about this fight on Saturday is that I think, and it's the thing I asked about yesterday in one question, I think Petr Yan is going to be able to, over 25 minutes, keep Merab off of him enough to get off some offense and to have some impact. But I'm really interested to see if that's the case, because this is the kind of fight that has the ability to take Merab from a really fun, interesting story of a guy that lost his first 2 fights in the UFC, then strung together 8 wins. He's got a good personality, loves the takedowns. He knows how many he's collected in his UFC career off heart. Talked to him earlier this week for a story that's up on UFC.com, and he threw it out there. He threw the number out there himself. And when you know the number yourself, it means you really care about those things. And so I'm certainly interested to see how this fight plays out. But this is the one that can take him from that nice story to, okay, this guy's a real goddamn problem. And then that gets interesting as well, right? Because his best friend and training partner, Aljamain Sterling, currently sits atop the throne. He is set, as far as we know, as far as has been talked, as far as Aljo has discussed, going to fight Henry Cejudo in a couple of months here to defend that bantamweight title, which could maybe put Merab in with Sean O'Malley at some point down the road, potentially, let's say July, International Fight Week. We know that Sean O'Malley likes fighting in Las Vegas. But it also creates a situation where Aljo has talked about leaving the belt behind and going up to featherweight so his guy can get an opportunity to fight for the title. That's a really interesting subplot and undercurrent to all of this. Certainly Saturday has to take place first, and we have to get the result. Merab has to win in order for that to be a thing we have to think about. But if he does, it's a thing we're going to have to talk about, and it's really fascinating to me. Item 3, Alexander Volkov returns. So, talked yesterday about the heavyweight division a couple of times, about the heavyweight division being kind of stale, even though we just got a new champion and we have some new matchups with John Jones. The reason I'm excited and the reason I like Volkov returning is because he looked different last time out. Traditionally, typically, he has been a guy that comes out, fights at range, isn't a big power, isn't a big finishing threat, but is more going to beat you with technique and technical abilities and just sort of working from the outside, picking you apart, as we saw sort of with the Marcin Tybura win, as we've seen with so many other wins. Against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he came out and was just like, you know what? I'm going to get this dude out of here. I'm not going to waste I don't need to be in here for 15 minutes. I can be in here for less than 5, get paid the same, and go on home. Maybe even get 50 grand extra. That's intriguing to me because Volkov is ultra experienced, presents problems because of his height and his length and his ability to understand and how his ability to use them and understand how to use those two things. And as much as he's sort of fought everybody already, and we've got some markers of where he fits and sort of who has beaten him, I do think he's a guy in his mid-30s or trending towards his late 30s that can still be a factor in this division and still present some intrigue in this division if there's been a shift in mindset, if there's been a change in terms of the way he approaches things. If he comes out and he is an offensive guy going forward now, that's a new wrinkle, and that's interesting. And against Alexander Romanov, it sort of feels like one of those fights where maybe we don't see it in the first 5 minutes because Romanov is traditionally pretty good in those first 5 minutes. But after that, he kind of fades. I was confused by this fight. I don't necessarily like this matchup. As I said yesterday, I would have liked to see Jailton Almeida in here against Volkov. But I want to see if Volkov is a more aggressive fighter now. If that fight against Jairzinho was a harbinger of things to come or just a one-off anomaly. Because if it's the trend, if it's the new normal, he's interesting again. Item number 4, a non-main event main event. Nikita Krylov and Ryan Spann were set to headline a couple of weeks ago at the Apex. And when it was the main event, a lot of people, understandably, fair enough, whatever, their opinion, thought, yeah, this just isn't quite the meaty main event that I want it to be. Even though they're both top 10 fighters in the light heavyweight division, that division is a little shallow. And so didn't really have that main event heft. Well, it's not the main event anymore. It's now the third fight on the main card, as it's been moved back here after being canceled a couple of weeks ago when Nikita Krylov got sick. And now, to me, it carries all that same intrigue that it had as a main event. It becomes perhaps even more interesting because they go from having 25 minutes to only having 15 to work. And that certainly will change the dynamic of this fight. And just on the basis of two guys in a division where new names are always needed, coming in on 2-fight winning streaks, looking to take that next step and put themselves in a position to fight a top 5 opponent next time out. You give me that as the third fight on a card that's headlined by Petr Yan and Merab Dvalishvili in a very important bantamweight matchup, and I'm all in. I'm all the way in. I understand that it wasn't necessarily a lot of people's favorite main event, but it's not the main event now. So what's the criticism? What's the complaint? We're out of the apex. We've got a main event that is no longer the main event that's stuck in the middle of this card. After getting the misfortune of it being canceled, we get the good fortune of it being rebooked very quickly here. Things are good this weekend. Celebrate some of these positives. Get pumped for this fight. It is an important fight. The winner is going to be facing one of those top 5 names that is right there in the mix. Big deal. Item number 5, bantamweight litmus test between Said Nurmagomedov and Jonathan Martinez. Said's one of those guys, like, he's so interesting to me because he could be doing everything wrong and still has that ability to find a finish, sort of as we saw last time out with Sadykhub Kakhramonov, getting out grappled, getting out struck, feeling like, okay, this kid is the real deal. And I still think Kakhramonov is the real deal and somebody that we should keep an eye on, regardless of his current contract status with the UFC, where I believe he's no longer with the promotion, but a name to keep an eye on regardless of where he competes. But in that fight, Said was able to capitalize on one mistake, a head outside single, locks up a ninja choke, and we're gone. Now he gets Jonathan Martinez, who comes in on a 4-fight winning streak, who has won 8 of 10, should be 9 of 10, as I talked about yesterday. It's just been a really nice run, but the level of competition hasn't necessarily been there to tell you exactly where this guy fits. And Nurmagomedov is that guy. He has been ranked before. I believe he's not ranked right now, but he's just outside of that top 15, right? He's at the upper end of that second 15 in this division. And bantamweight is one of those divisions where the second 15 is pretty damn good. Like, if you go to the second 15 of heavyweight or light heavyweight or middleweight, it ain't great. If you go to the second 15 of bantamweight, it's a bunch of killers. And so we're going to find out if Martinez is ready to go into that top 15, if Said is ready to go into that top 15, because if he goes out and smashes this dude that's won 4 straight fights, that's a statement in and of itself for him. As much as I'm framing this and think of this as the really big moment for Martinez, there's certainly go forward opportunities for Said Nurmagomedov here as well. It's a terrific fight. It's a terrific fight. This is a terrific card. Can't wait. Item number 6, bantamweight veterans collide. Rafael Assunção, Davy Grant, just a pair of old dogs that know who they are, that are coming out, looking to put on a show, looking to have some fun. They're going to get after it. Both are good in all facets, but like getting out there and just kind of planting their feet and swinging. As I said yesterday, they're the kind of veterans, they're the kind of tenured fighters that I think we need to celebrate more while they're here, because when they're gone, we sort of forget about them and it becomes too late. Assunção is a guy for me, and I've been fortunate enough to have a relationship with him throughout his career, speak to him many, many times, including this week ahead of this fight, that just never got and has never gotten the respect that he deserves. He should have gotten a title fight at some point during his 11-1 run to start his bantamweight career. It was great to see him from a personal feel for the guy, root for the guy standpoint. It was great to see him get a win over Victor Henry last October. He's told me that he thinks this is the last one. And if it is, I salute my guy. Happy to see him go out on his own terms. Hopefully it ends well, not as the 2 before the last fight did. And as for Davy Grant, man, another guy I've spoken to a bunch over my career, put up and went through a lot of tough stuff, went through a lot of injuries, was on stage in London ready to fight and had a torn ACL, and they checked him afterwards and were like, yeah, you can't go, man. Like, that's the epitome of a bad beat. We've seen people, go through camp and their opponent pull out. You go through camp and you tough out an injury all the way through and cut weight and get ready in the day before they say you can't go. It would have broken me. It would have broken a bunch of other people, but Davy Grant persisted and has built a career for himself in the UFC nonetheless, to where he is part of that second 15 that I was just talking about. These two are going to get after it on Saturday. It's going to be an entertaining fight. It's two guys that I hope whoever is on the call gives them their time, gives them their moment, gives them their recognition, talks about the impact they have had at their stations in this division, because it doesn't always have to be number one contender, champion, top 10, whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's just about two veteran guys that have put in the years and the hours and the work and the great fights, and we need to celebrate them more. Item number 7, a whole bunch of Dana White Contender Series newbies. I know most people kind of don't like all these Contender Series fighters. And this weekend we get a bunch of them. We get Vitor Petrino making his debut against Anton Turkai, who didn't get a contract, but is a Contender Series grad nonetheless. We get Carl Williams against Łukasz Brzeski. We get Cedricus Dumas making his debut against Josh Fremd. So there's 5 guys that are coming off the Contender Series at one point or another, season 5 or season 6. I believe Łukasz Brzeski is the only season 5 guy. And for me, it's just the same mandate that I have at the start of the year, the same outlook that I have at the start of the year. I just want to get more looks. I just want to see what these people can do once they hit this stage. And I've done my nerd stuff of keeping track of all of the records and processing all of the records in terms of Contender Series graduates and how far they get and wins and losses and all like that. And I mean, the reality is, and people won't like to hear this. I understand that people don't want to hear me spinning Contender Series positive because they want to be angry about it. And there's reasons to be frustrated or not necessarily the biggest backer of it. But this thing has worked. It's been successful. It's produced a champion in Jamal Hill. It's produced several contenders. And every year, if you get 1 or 2 fighters that reach that, I mean, the absolute best is the Jamal Hill case. You reach championship contention. But even if you are a Jeff Neal or a Ryan Spann, who was on this fight card, or Johnny Walker, who came off the kind of 3-pack of all Brazilian events, you become a rotational member of the UFC, a tenured member of the roster that churns out 7, 8, 9, 10 fights and keeps going. Brendan Allen, a great example, right? Taken time over a few years, but is now a top 10 fighter in the middleweight division. That's a win for Contender Series. Even if there are 3, 4, 5 people from that season that didn't get beyond 3 or 4 fights, that season produced Jamal Hill and Brendan Allen, and that's all it needs to do. Last season gave us Jailton Almeida and Caio Bahayo. And right now, even if it stops at those two, even if they're the only 2 athletes that have success from the 30-something that got contracts on season 6 or season 5, I should say, that's a win. And so I want to see if Cedricus Dumas can be one of those guys, if Vitor Petrino can be one of those guys, if Carl Williams can be one of those guys, because it only takes one. And if we get 1 or 2 or 3, then it's a win. And we've had the chance to watch them grow and develop and follow them from the get-go, where they've been presented to us fully. I mean, look, Bo Nickel, like it or not, is now a Contender Series guy. And he's going to get a push. He's going to get a shot. And he looks like he's going to be really good. We're getting the opportunity to follow these athletes, to meet these athletes at the very start and follow every step. And I know there's some reasons to not be in, but there are also reasons to be in, and I am in. You don't have to be. I am, and it excites me every time I get a chance to make these reads. Item number 8, Mario Batista. This is a guy that over the last, from the get-go of his career, truthfully, I've been interested, because he trains at a great camp with the lab out in Glendale. John Crouch, that crew, Benson Henderson, fighting for Bellator Gold soon. Shout out to Smooth. But especially over these last 3 fights, he's looked really good. Dominated Jay Perrin, went out and finished Boom Kelleher, went out and finished Benito Lopez really nicely last time out. changes levels well in terms of the variety of his strikes and the varied nature of his striking. Good crisp boxing, can mix in some kicks, throws some flying knees, and has some power, has some finishing instincts, some finishing abilities. And he's one of these guys that I'm always going to be interested to see continue competing, because right now his ceiling is undefined to me. You can say he got knocked out by Trevin Jones, and Trevin Jones struggled to pull the trigger against Cody Garbrandt, and that's fair. But sometimes things just happen, right? Sometimes you just make a mistake and you get caught, and it is what it is. His only other loss in the UFC is his short notice debut against Corey Sandhagen, and last I checked, that guy's really damn good. As I said, he's won 3 straight, gets Guido Canetti this weekend. I think it's another win. I think it's a chance to go 4 straight wins, probably 3 straight finishes, and then he's in that spot where he's in the second 15, looking at a bigger name, waiting on a bigger opportunity. I'm always going to ride with these guys. I'm always going to ride with these clearly talented emerging fighters. And it's not because I want to be in on all of them so that if one pops, I can say I was in. But it's just so that I know. It's just so I know who these people are, because one of them is going to pop. This is the argument I make all the time. This is the case that I present all the time. We have moments where we say, who are these guys that came out of nowhere? And no one comes out of nowhere. So if Mario Batista or Jonathan Martinez on this card go out and continue stringing together these wins, it's unfair to them to say, who are these guys that came out of nowhere? Because they've been out here doing their thing, plying their trade, putting on good performances. It's us that haven't been paying attention. It's you that haven't been paying attention. They've been here. And if you want to say it's on the UFC to showcase them more, what do you want them to do? Spotlight every fighter on the card? Oh, wait, I do that every week at UFC.com with the Fight by Fight preview. I spotlighted these 2 gentlemen in particular this week in Fighters on the Rise, and I write that series every single week. So we got you covered. What's the next excuse? These guys are here and they're putting in work, and they've looked damn good over their last bunch of fights. Mario Batista has looked damn good over his last few fights. And if you haven't taken notice, if you haven't started to get excited and pay attention and look forward to seeing him compete the next time, that's not his fault, the UFC's fault, my fault, anybody else's fault, but your own. Pay attention. This dude is good, and he's going to be fighting someone you like and know in the bantamweight division very soon. Item number 9. JJ Aldrich and her clean boxing. I wanted to make a point to include this one because I think I don't actually do a good enough job of shouting out the female sort of stalwarts, the female fixtures in these divisions, and JJ Aldrich presents a really great opportunity to do so. She's not a contender. She's not going to be a contender. But what she is a clean, technical boxer with a great jab, who knows who she is as an athlete, who knows who she is as a fighter. And every time she goes out there, she's going to give you hell. She's going to make it a rough night for you. And those kind of athletes, for me, deserve praise, attention, my time, my interest, because it can't just be about the people at the top of the division. Can't just be about the people at the top of the marquee, because it takes the people like JJ Aldrich. The perfect way to explain this to me, right? It's easy to be excited about Erin Blanchfield right now, coming off that win over Jessica Andrade. 23 puts her in that position. It was easy to be in on Erin Blanchfield after the win at Madison Square Garden, because she showed out, right? She took that moment. She was calm. Everything was good about it. She was the local girl not getting the cheers from the crowd at the weigh-ins. That was Molly getting it. And she goes out and dominates and just dirt off her shoulder. But the one that really was the eye-opener for Erin Blanchfield, and I wrote about this a few weeks ago at OSDB Sports, was the JJ Aldrich win. Because JJ was boxing her up and then made one mistake, got caught in one bad position, and Erin Blanchfield capitalized and locked up a choke. Standing high elbow guillotine. It was a really great finish, but that was the moment that I know for myself, already in on Aaron Blanchfield, went, okay, this is even better than I thought. And it's because of the caliber. It's because of the history. It's because of understanding who and what JJ Aldrich is. And that is a stalwart in this division, a very critical piece of the flyweight ecosystem. She gets a fight on Saturday against Ariane Lipsky. I think it's a winnable fight. I look forward to seeing her go out there and just use that clean technical boxing that she has been honing for a long, long time, that she has been utilizing for a long, long time. And I hope she, like Essensau, like Davy Grant, like so many other veterans that we heap praise on, gets that praise and gets that moment. Item 10, flyweight opener with intrigue. Tyson Nam against Bruno Bulldog Silva. As I said yesterday, Bruno Silva feels like the Kaiser Sose, 2 good wins. Looks like he's moving up, and then he's gone. Now he's back. Tyson Nam is a knockout artist, knocked out O'Day Osborne out of the air, literally, last time out with a big right hand. He will be chucking them again on Saturday. It's just a matter of if it lands. This is an intriguing fight in a division that has been, for the last several months, very prominent, should continue to be going forward, even though bantamweight right now kind of grabs the spotlight both this weekend and over the next couple, I think, over the next couple of months, because we build to Aljo and Henry Cejudo and the different permutations that can come in that division. But flyweight's been really good. I think there's been 8 fights in the flyweight division this year. 7 have ended inside of the distance. This one has the potential to end inside the distance. It's a very good fight to kick off what is, for me, a very good fight card. And I hope, as always, with this series, with this show, that I've done enough to pique your interest, that I've got you excited about Saturday, because clearly I'm fired up. And I know I'm the guy that's fired up every single weekend, but I'm really excited about this card. It's a great fight card. 5 bantamweight fights. The division goes into the spotlight, writing about that for OSDB this week. We get the non-main event, main event, Ryan Spann, Nikita Krylov. We get a whole bunch of interesting fighters. I hope you look forward to it. I hope you enjoy it on Saturday. Ian and I would normally be doing the Severe Picks and Plays on Friday. Ian is actually taking a little bit of a vacation, going back to the home country, going back to the Emerald Isle. So I will be rolling solo, trying to recover from UFC 285, trying to change up my approach a little bit, go bigger on individual, smarter wagers to try to dig myself out of this hole that I created last weekend. But that'll be tomorrow. Appreciate you checking in. Hope you enjoyed it. Know you're loved. Know we appreciate you, and we'll see you tomorrow.